Okay, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. My name's Adam Woodgate. I head up Research Solutions here at the Insight family. And welcome to our webinar. Our interest in anime has been ongoing here as we've tracked the growth of this amazing genre with our young audiences. And we're here to share some key findings that relate to a presentation that took place at MIPCOM along with Toei Animation and Crunchyroll, our partners there, along with a playbook that we've just published that I'll give you details of how you can obtain a copy, either via our website, downloading from a link that is going to be popped in the chat, or on a QR code that you'll see in the presentation. If you're new to the Insights family and don't know what we do, we are a specialist tracker of kids, family, and young adult media consumption, behaviors, and attitudes in 22 countries around the world. We began doing this in 2017 in the UK, followed closely by the US, and we have since expanded, as you can see from this map, across the Americas, into the rest of EMEA and into Asia, and also in Australia. Our survey covers a broad aspect of kids and young people's lives, ranging from their media and screen use through to their brands and content that they're passionate about, how they find out about content, how they share and talk about content, and what other interests and passions are in their lives. And our data is all available on our wonderful online platform, which is accessible from anywhere that you have access to the internet. So that's a little bit about us. You can always contact us and we gladly show you more. Today, though, the focus is on this genre that really has caught young people's imaginations, but has been around a lot longer than we might think it has. It's the rise of anime. And in this webinar, we're going to talk about how it's grown and what its size and scale is. We're going to talk about the anime fan base, so you can kind of understand who are the fans of this genre. Look at some global trends, look at the media consumption of anime fans, look at their purchase behavior, what they're interested in, what they're asking their parents to spend money on, or what they're spending their allowance or pocket money on. And we'll talk about some collaborations, by consumer brands with the anime genre. And then at the end, we'll give you some key takeaways. And thank you if you shared a question in advance. I'm going to try and answer them, at the end of this webinar. So I do hope you enjoy it. And here we go. So the rise of anime. Let's talk about what it is. Anime is really short for animation, and it refers to a style of animated content originating in Japan, characterized by vibrant artwork, diverse themes, and very imaginative storytelling. It's been around a number of decades. And while the medium encompasses a wide array of genres, ranging from action and romance to mech and science fiction to scary, creepy, don't like to use the word horror when we're talking about kids and teens, but scary, creepy we'll use, and even slice of life. It's distinguished by its distinct visual style, including exaggerated facial expressions, colorful hair and detailed backgrounds, all of which has been influenced, over the years and developed from the manga comics into this vibrant style. Now, anime, as I said, can be adapted from manga, which is Japanese comics, or light novels, but many original creations and formats for anime include TV series, movies, original video animations, and web series. And they appeal to all agencies. And I'll come on to the different age appeals of anime in a moment. But you may have come across series like Naruto, Dragon Ball, Attack on Titan. They've all gained global acclaim, contributing to anime's influence in international pop culture. And beyond its artistic appeal, anime often serves as a cultural lens into Japanese life, its traditions and its values. And the themes resonate with young people today: perseverance, teamwork, self-discovery, Perseverance, I think I've covered that, sorry. All prevalent. I think friendship is an incredible kind of theme that really resonates, and also determination too. And it often explores mature and philosophical questions. Anime's accessibility has grown rapidly through streaming platforms, and that's helped grow the fan base worldwide, turning, creating conventions, cosplay, and fan art into vibrant components of the global anime culture. So whether you're a casual viewer or a devoted fan, anime offers something for everyone. The five types of anime, are really classified into the following, and they all really pitch to a different audience, age group, and also genre. So the five main demographic categories, but there are many more genres and subgenres, which you can dig into if you go online. I'm going to talk about the five key ones here right now. So Kodomomuke, excuse my pronunciation, is the one aimed at the youngest audiences. Then the shonen, which is aimed at male teens, shoujo aimed at young teen girls, and then for the older audiences, we have seinen and josei. So Kodomomuke is aimed at really an audience of 12 and under. And we've all watched some of these shows in our childhood without knowing that it was anime at that time in our life. Shonen is the most popular one of all the five types of anime. And you must, the word shonen, you may have heard in your life, but if you're not, it literally means boy. This type of anime is generally targeted towards teenage boys, but even teen girls like this genre of anime. Now, shoujo literally translates into young girls, and like shonen is made for young boys, shoujo is made for young female audiences. It's crafted for young girls, generally aged 12 to 18, and shoujo anime or manga explores the feminine side, which basically includes genres such as drama and romance. And as opposed to shonen, shoujo has female lead characters, and often the story revolves around their lives. The two other anime genres are seinen, which literally means youth, and this category is targeted towards young adult men. So this anime covers the audience who are 18 and above. It's predominantly male appeal, but females do like it. And then we've got josei, which refers to woman or female, and it's the equivalent of seinen for females, and thus it's intended for an 18 plus adult women audience. And it improves on the themes of shoujo, with more realistic lives of women, including their relationships, challenges, and more. For the purpose of this, because we're kind of like at the younger end of this audience, we're going to focus on the three sort of kids and teen genres of anime, and I'm just giving you some examples of the shows that you may have come across that relate to Kodomomuke, which would be Pokemon or Doraemon, Shonen, Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, and One Piece, all very famous. And then in shoujo, Sailor Moon, Fruit Baskets, and that gives you a sense of some examples of the IPs that you may and franchises that you may have come across, in that relate to those three of the five genres of anime. So let's have a look at the anime fan base. What you're seeing here is the top four genres as a global average. So, as I said, we researched 22 countries, so it's the global average of those 22 countries. And here we see the top entertainment genres across those countries we survey. Now, you can see the popularity of anime, which is the mid-colored blue. You've got action and adventure, which is the darker blue. The pale blue is comedy, and then the greeny blue, turquoise, not quite sure what that color is fantasy. And you can see the popularity of anime and comedy kind of go hand in hand amongst 3 to 5, 6 to 9s, with comedy starting to pull away amongst the 10 to 12s. But anime remains, either tied for first place or just behind amongst that whole 3 to 12-year-old audience. As we move into the teens, we see anime drops back a little, but still remains popular. Over 2/5 of the audience enjoy the genre, although it's behind comedy and action adventure. And amongst the 16 to 18s, it's just below 2/5. As we get into our next gen data, we're looking at anime dipping at around a fifth of the audience behind comedy, action, adventure, and fantasy. And in fact, when we drill down into the country data, and this is for Q3 2024, so that's the period 1st of July to the 30th of September, we can see that anime is the top top TV and film genre in France, in China, in Indonesia, in Japan, in the Philippines, in Saudi Arabia, and South Korea. And we're going to come back to why we think anime is resonating so strongly with this young audience right now. And it's ahead of other genres like action adventure, comedy, and the other ones we track in our ongoing study. Now, this chart looks at 4 countries in particular, plus our global average. And I'll remind you, the global average is based on the 22 countries we survey. It's not a global average of all 210 nations around the world. So, comparing France, the UK, US, and Japan, no surprise really that Japan is where the highest level of popularity scores are achieved for anime. Now, you'll notice we don't have any data for audiences above 18 in Japan. That's because as yet we haven't launched our next gen study in that market. So we're there just looking at our kids study, but in France, UK, and US, we are looking at all ages that we're surveying at the moment, so from 3 to 30. So Japan obviously has the highest scores for popularity with the genre and peaking amongst those 6 to 9-year-olds. So Kodomo is the type of anime they're probably going to be watching a lot of, but also watching shoujo and shonen anime as well with those young teens. You'll notice that the next country where anime ranks the highest is in France. And its popularity there is a little bit more balanced across 6 to 9s and 10 to 12s, with some appeal amongst the 3 to 5s and maintaining its audience amongst the 13 to 15s and to a lesser extent 16 to 18s. Now France we'll come back to shortly as we talk about why France has this affinity to anime. But what we're seeing now is growing audiences in other countries. And we've pulled out a couple of examples here, the UK and the US being 2 of those examples. Let's start with the US, and you can see anime's popularity grows with age. So around 25 to 30% of kids aged 3 to 5 and 6 to 9 are saying that they like anime. Then it grows again with 10 to 12s and just nudges ahead with the 13 to 15s before dipping back a little. And you can see amongst the young adults there, so the 19 to 20 to 30-year-olds, around a fifth of the audience say, yeah, I like this genre. So it remains popular into young adulthood as well. In the UK, which is a market where anime has made appearances on TV over the years, I think back to personal experience of my childhood when Battle of the Planets was shown on the children's block on the BBC towards the end of the 70s. But it didn't have the presence that it has had in France. So therefore, it's new platforms, emerging platforms, and also the popularity of the genre that are now driving the growth in the UK. And you can see that it's peaking at the moment with those preteen audiences of 10 to 12s, with a perfect kind of shape on either side as the 3 to 5-year-old and 6 to 9s. The audience builds there, it dips away with the teenagers, but again, just under a fifth of the audience finding that anime remains popular in their lives. So I said a moment ago that anime has had this popularity in France for many years. And there's lots of cultural and historical factors as to why anime, out of all the European countries we survey, kind of has that over-indexing. Early exposure of France was one of the first Western countries to broadcast anime in the 1970s and 80s. Shows like Goldorak, Dragon Ball, and Saint Seiya, forgive my pronunciation, Saint Seiya perhaps. These shows became highly ingrained in French culture. One of the reasons was that there were hours to fill on the channels, and the content was acquired relatively cost effectively by them. As we go beyond media, cultural compatibility. French audiences appreciate the artistic and narrative depth of anime, which often explores complex themes like philosophy, human relationships, societal issues, and that aligns a lot with the cultural tradition of France, valuing great storytelling and artistic, excellence. Manga's success, the widespread availability and popularity of manga in France. It's the second largest consumer market for Japanese comics outside Japan itself. And that significantly contributed to the appeal of manga. And of course, many, as said before, many anime adaptations are based on the successful manga series. Dedicated programming blocks, I'll come back to TV, dedicated programming blocks and channels like Club Dorothée in the 80s and 90s made anime accessible to French audiences, and now streaming platforms and even anime specific services, so streaming platforms like Netflix and specific services like Crunchyroll are providing easy access to anime. And then, the diversity of the genres, I don't think we can overlook the fact that anime splits and aligns very culturally with, aligns very appropriately with audiences and audience ages. And that diversity has helped it gain a broad fan base in France. And then finally, as young audiences want the 360-degree experience, we have fan communities and events. There are major events in the country like Japan Expo, one of the largest Japanese pop culture conventions outside Japan, which has fostered a great sense of community amongst the anime fans. And these factors have all contributed and made anime a prominent, enduring part of French entertainment and culture. What about gender balance? And I think this is always interesting in entertainment because, often entertainment skews, if you think sport, will it often skew towards boys, although that is changing as more girls' sports get the coverage they deserve. And often boys are earlier adopters than girls, and that tends to play out in our data. And so if we go back to the UK, France, US, and Japan, you can see that in mature markets like France and Japan, anime has a very balanced uh, gender profile. In France, it's almost perfectly 50-50. In Japan, just marginally, and I mean marginally skewed towards boys. In the UK, though, as we're building, as the audience builds for the genre, it is still retains its boy skew, but it's highly likely to see girls catch up in time as they do on other platforms, and the balance become more neutral. Now, the US has a slightly older profile, so you'll notice it's tucked away on the right-hand side of the screen, and that's because the age profiling of anime in the US is slightly older. It's that young preteen and young teen audience, and again, the market is less mature, so we still have a slight bias towards boys, but not as much as we do in the UK. And what about trends worldwide? Um, so, we're looking here at a selection of the countries across Asia Pacific. So we have Japan, we have China, we have the Philippines, we have the Americas in terms of Brazil and Mexico and the US, and we have EMEA in terms of Saudi, in terms of France, in terms of Germany. And these are the top countries by anime. And you can see Japan, of course, where it originates, is going to massively over-index, and 3/4 of the population consuming it in Japan, 2/3 in China, just over 3/5 in the Philippines, more than half in Brazil. Again, if we come down to EMEA, more than half, almost 60% in Saudi, and more than half in France. And when we look at things and we see the reason behind this is that, in Japanese shows in America, like Kimber the White Lion, Gigantor, and Astro Boy were a common sight in television in the 60s, but yet it took until the 70s and 80s and a string of European Japanese co-promotions before anime finally began to find a hold, in the European market beyond France. I'm thinking shows like Thundercats, To Cities of Gold, and Akira. They introduced Japanese anime to audiences that hadn't experienced it before. So it's always had a following, but it's also just taken off as well. And kind of it hits a point of inflection, I suppose you would say. Characters are important, narrative is important. And I think this is where we start to get to the crux of what's going on here and why the audiences, are coming to enjoy the genre more. Anime, because of its cultural background, does this thing, and I hinted at it earlier, which is teaching lessons in life. And I think what we're getting with kids today is, they've been on and seeing touchscreen use since almost they opened their eyes the first time. They've seen parents and elder siblings using these screens to access content. And so I call any kid born post the iPad the touchscreen native. And they're used to this world, and forgive me if you've heard me say this before, of touchscreen, mobile, interactive, on demand entertainment. So, what does that mean? Well, they feel empowered. Their screens empower them to get content, and they can choose, they can curate their own media lives. And I think what anime does is it layers onto this, it layers on with, teaching them about empowering themselves. And I think some of the things that comes out of anime for me is this lessons in life. And that's in contrast to a lot of other kids' content, which is, light-hearted, or it's, built around humor, or it's built around animals and wildlife, or it's built around, enduring IPs that have been around for a long time that kids are familiar with, and of course they still love. But anime adds something else to their life, to their mix, and it's these lessons in life. No, for example, no one is too weak to be a hero. Tears are more powerful than superpowers. Train your individuality to become a strength. And the line between hero and villain can be blurry. No one is useless. Your determination and attitude is more important than actions. And fight for your friendships. And I think those things, those elements, those lessons in life are really resonating with an audience that wants to be empowered. They want content that empowers them. We see this when they go outside of the TV and video world, when they go into Roblox or Fortnite Creative. Those platforms empower them to create and make and tell stories and share stories. And I think that anime is just another element that now connects, it fits in the jigsaw of their life. So I think that, they're all great teachings that come out of anime, and the different series of anime that are available for them to watch. And they're great teachings, especially, as I said, at a time when kids desire this empowerment, and they're getting it through UGC video, UGC games. So these are the top countries where anime is growing. So all significant increases, all roughly 10% or a little bit above in the case of Germany. And this is comparing quarter 2 of this year versus quarter 3 of this year across our data, and just focusing on that audience of 6 to 12-year-olds. So again, it's an audience that will straddle, the younger genre of anime and the teen genres of anime. And we can attribute the growth to several factors: technology, social, cultural. I've already said streaming services like Netflix, Crunchyroll, but and Amazon Prime, making anime more accessible, and also on demand, vast catalogs of titles with subtitles and dubs in multiple languages really means that all of a sudden this genre is available to a wider audience. The influence of social platforms. We know that kids under 13 are not supposed to be on social platforms. We also know they are, often with parents' permission, within parents' guidelines. And they've created for these spaces, especially UGC platforms, for fans to share their love, their appreciation, their enjoyment of the genre. They do it through memes and arts and discussions and chats, and that broadens its reach. Your peer group, if they're into it, you're going to talk about the genre, you're going to talk about the shows, and that then grows that affinity with the brand. The cultural appeal, just unique storytelling. Often intricate plots, unique characters, imaginative words that offer something different to what maybe has come out of Western studios or Hollywood. It gives something else. It adds to the diversity of content that kids are consuming, and then those diverse genres within the different age ranges of the anime category. So you've got from action and fantasy to romance and slice of life, and I think the slice of life is very much relevant in terms of going back to that point about lessons in life. The Japanese culture fascination as well. Many anime incorporate aspects of Japanese culture, history, mythology, which often just is intriguing to an audience now that's been born into a world without borders. It's not a case of how far the satellite footprint is or how far the transmitter signal goes. The internet makes things generally borderless for this generation, so they're as happy to consume content from Asia as they are Latin America. If it connects with them and resonates with what the audiences are passionate and interested in, then they're going to consume it. Then obviously the consumption and the engagement builds you an audience, and then you want to engage with that in the real world. Disney early on realized that by looking at a flywheel of what you could create from a theatrical release ended up in the Disneyland and Disney World. Well, no surprise that anime now has generated live events and conventions, and they just allow fans to come together. And fans coming together is always a great affirmation that, you're like me. I'm interested in things that you're interested in. We can talk about it. We can develop bonds and friendships. And as I said, younger audiences are consuming more global media than past generations. And anime is a significant part of internet culture. And so platforms like TikTok and YouTube just add and enhance the availability of this content as the audience consumes anime across different time zones and country boundaries. And we're having now, anime moving forward as partnerships between Japanese and studios and Western distributors have allowed anime to be localized, not just subtitles, but high quality dubbing and culturally sensitive translations, making it acceptable in local territories. And then we have obviously the brand extensions, so the merchandise, consumer products. So that could be figurines, it could be clothing, it's posters, all available, to the audience to further engage and show their fandom. So I'm thinking of brands like Beyblade, I'm thinking of Dragon Ball. The physical product just squares the circle. From the shows to the product to the real world experiences and the ability to share and talk about further. So it's the combination of these factors that have taken anime from not just niche interest to more of a mainstream build in countries like the UK and Germany. But it's still growing in other markets too, and there's growing acceptance and enthusiasm. And there's a lot we can learn from why anime itself is growing, but what anime can help when you're thinking about creating content. Let's have a look just at a second of some anime um, shows and some characters. The next two sides focus on anime shows and characters. Now, we asked this question in an open-ended format, so numbers are not massive percentages like they would be if we gave a list of brands for kids to check. We love to do this in a way that kids tell us what they want to know, not as opposed to us confirming what we already know. So here you can see, and probably not surprising, Pokemon being the top watched anime. It has a global footprint in many countries, say in the UK here. Its first run is on CBBC before it moves on to Netflix. In other countries, its first run is on Netflix. But, there's been a lot of free to air anime content over the years. You've got Naruto and Doraemon, which tends to have a bigger footprint in Asia. So is probably, when we look at things average globally, that depresses the numbers a little bit. But you get a sense of the three big direct sort of anime shows. And Doraemon, I mean, amazing IP, been around decades with many, 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 many episodes, available and starting to get some traction in Europe as well. When we look at the top anime characters, not surprisingly, Pikachu from Pokemon gives us the highest score. 1 in 8 kids saying that Pikachu is their top anime character. And then you can see the other two there we've got there, and Doraemon as a character around about 3%. Looking at 6 to 12s over time, and what I'm showing you here is the popularity of anime on a month-by-month basis across 6 to 12s, again, back to France, Japan, UK, US. And I'm going to summarize the charts. Now, the charts wobble around a bit. They do. You'll notice there's a little chunk in the August to October period of last year where numbers dipped in Japan, in France, but not so much in the US and in the UK either. Things change, seasonality, things happen and events can distract audience. It's also a period as particularly for the 6 to 12s that you've got transition to the new terms in school, and there's many factors that can affect things. But I would draw your attention generally to the fact that anime is high and stable, really, apart from that wobble in the middle in Japan. Very much in France, north of 50% the audience like the genre. In the US, it's around 2/5, and in the UK, you've seen a steady performance really until sort of November of last year. But we've seen a steady growth, and then we have this surge from May of this year, really, in the genre, and we're sort of heading towards numbers in the US. France and Japan, more mature markets, and the popularity really stable. And it's, the short-term dips happen from time to time in genres as things come along and distract audiences. And remember, in a kid's world, everything competes with everything. So you're not just talking about TV or video here. Other things on other platforms can distract kids. So games, social, toys, the physical world, events, all will distract kids. And, when they're thinking about what they can do in the time that they control, everything is up for grabs. Your brand is in consideration, but they're going to choose something that satisfies a mood, a need state, the devices they have, who they're with, how long they've got to do this with. So you will see that, the audience does, we do get wobbles in when we look at data on a monthly basis. When we look at the slightly older audience, the young adults, and this is from our next gen study, which launched in France in May of this year. So we don't have any data beyond that. And we only went up to September because, as I said, we were primarily focusing for this anime playbook on Q3 of this year, July through September. The chart shows just over 1/5 of young adults consuming anime in terms of the popularity of the genre. And it's the market where that audience that grew up maybe 10, 15 years ago watching anime shows in France have carried on the passion, into their young adulthood. And now with services like Crunchyroll, Netflix, having libraries or exclusively being anime, you can see that is likely to remain a factor with this audience. And as we investigate the popularity of the genre and watch the audience age up from teens into young adults, we're pretty confident that those kids today and teens today who are enjoying the anime series will carry that enjoyment of this genre into their young adult life. So how do young adults, so this is the 19 to 30-year-olds in France, discover TV shows? So this is anime fans. So we've split the audience into those who like anime. So anyone who says, yes, anime is a genre I like. How do I find out about it? Well, the first one is it's in the vernacular. It's in the common conversations. It's being talked about wherever young people are mixing. It's the expression water cooler talk in the office or playground or schoolyard talk amongst kids. So for 2/5, they're finding out about anime because people are talking about it in general. 2/5 are also being recommended, so content recommendations on online platforms such as Netflix, Crunchyroll, on Prime, they're bringing the audience to it. And then the next biggest way is 3 out of 10 are finding out about it through social media. And there you can see significant, very significant over-indexing amongst this audience. So if you're thinking anime or distributing anime, recommendations and social media are key strategies to reach young adults, but also getting it into the common vernacular, into conversations between peer groups round the water cooler, in daily life are really important for this. And so when we look at some interesting commonality about what anime fans are more likely to do in their life. So this is about their media consumption, their device use, and their other behaviors outside anime. So we've got France, we've got the UK, and we've got the US. So anime fans, we're back to the 6 to 12, so the middle grades in preteens, they're more likely to do the following. So they over-index in France on Disney Plus. In the UK, they over-index on Prime Video. In the US, they over-index on Cartoon Network. Might surprise you that they're over-indexing on a linear cable brand, but they are. So they're more likely than normal to consume those platforms or channels. And in terms of devices, the French anime fans aged 6 to 12 are using a TV longer than average, 10% longer than average in France. In the UK, they're using a laptop more than average. And in the US, a games console about 7% more than average. And then just so you can kind of see the differences, what are the genres do they like? So fantasy across the board, across the 3 countries, very much so. As we look at France, game shows, now there's a genre that really doesn't necessarily resonate big time in the kids space, but game shows over-indexing. You can see again, sci-fi is higher than average. Not so keen on using the term horror with kids of this age, so I tend to go scary, creepy, although we've shorthanded it for horror. So I don't want you to think your typical 18 plus. I want you to think more Goosebumps or Wednesday as kind of the shows that represent that category there. So again, 19% higher than average. And documentary, so factual. So again, documentaries inform kids. Factual content helps them build knowledge. So your anime genre fans, also enjoying non-scripted content, especially in the US. And then, what else do anime fans do? So what are they doing when they're not consuming Pokemon or Naruto or One Piece? They're gaming. Um, they're gaming. It's a really popular element. Now we know 6 to 12s are already the audience that's the fastest growing into the video games, console games, app games space. As they develop their skills, their motor skills, they're able to, upskill, master basic games from apps, and then moving on to console games that are made for kids, such as I'm thinking Mario in this space, but also the game platforms. This is where we see the audiences come to Roblox, to Minecraft, and towards the end of this age group, so maybe 10, 11, 12, they're coming to Fortnite as well. But you can see the overlap is huge. gaming really popular amongst anime fans. And what are the top video games that they're playing amongst anime fans? It really is, those brands that I told you a moment ago. It's the Mario series, whether it's Super Mario or Mario Kart, and Fortnite. It's Minecraft and Roblox, or Roblox and Minecraft and Super Mario. So you can see that the game platforms really important in this audience's life. Again, back to that thing of empowerment. The Minecraft, Robloxes, and Fortnites are all platforms where kids can make and create, they can play and tell stories, and that empowers them or makes them feel empowered. The Mario, more enduring brands designed for kids, that are more solo play, but they allow kids to also develop their skills, to master getting to the next level, to, figure out how they need to complete a level and so forth. And what about purchase behaviors associated with anime fans? So they're more likely to purchase toys related to their favorite TV shows. So they're more engaged. 39% in the UK, 29% in France. So 2 in 5 in the UK, 3 in 10 in France, which is 11% more than average in the UK and a quarter more than average in France, are more likely to purchase toys related to the TV show, their favorite TV shows. And over on the right-hand side, you can see that the purchase of video games over indexes massively. So they're buying video games that connect with TV shows in France and the US much more than they would do, necessarily other things. So you can see that there is a close correlation between anime fans purchasing toys related to their favorite TV shows and anime fans purchasing video games related to their favorite TV show. They're also more likely to interact with their favorite character by purchasing apparel or than normal. So just over a fifth in the UK, just under a quarter in the US, 22% more than average in the UK, 10% over index in the US, are more likely to interact with their favorite character by buying clothing and accessories, or by purchasing related toys and games. 28% do that in the UK, 15% in France. And again, you can see they're over indexing as well. So what about beyond the screen? What about collaborations? So Burger King is one. In France, My Hero Academia launched a special menu at Burger King in September, and it highlights two characters from the series, Deku and Bakugo. The superhero series has sold at least 10 million copies in France alone, placing it at the top of the market. And then Jimmy Choo, that famous shoe brand, probably not one you'd expect in anime, but they're featuring pieces inspired by the main Sailor Moon characters. You remember me showing you Sailor Moon as an example of teen girl animation, teen girl anime earlier. The collection dives deeper into the anime universe, celebrating how style, friendships, and individuality will drive personal transformation. And you get a collector's card. It's a limited edition design, and the aim is that it's all about collecting. So it's playing to that natural play pattern of collection, and that works really. Has worked for Jimmy Choo. So what we've learned in this last sort of 45 minutes or so, anime has cross-gender and cross-age appeal. I think the thing for me is this number 2 point is it aligning with kids' archetypes or their personas, but also that desire to build life skills, to understand how to do something for themselves. So less about becoming, the great footballer Lionel Messi or David Beckham, and more being able to do something for themselves. This dynamic between anime and this dynamic between anime and gaming, and the gender dynamics, where we've got, a more natural audience, a more gender neutral audience in the established markets, whereas in the emerging markets, we're seeing boys coming to the genre ahead of girls. I think possibly that as well, if you remember, is, Girls with a Watch, Teen Boy anime just as much as they'll watch their own. So girls will follow. We see that in a lot of entertainment where boys are earlier adopters, but girls are quickly behind them. And I think as the growing markets start to become, established, we'll get a sense that, the audiences are much more gender neutral. And what it means, well, I think, whilst the simple solution is if you're building or acquiring content for your platform, for your channel, for your service, having anime as part of the repertoire is going to have an audience appeal factor. And I think, it's going to attract an audience, you can retain the audience, but also it's going to bring audiences to your channel or platform or service. I think, you've got the variety within anime of by age, but also the types of anime. As I said, romance, slice of life, action and adventure, mech, and so forth. I think, the point three relates to how you can take the essence of anime, this life skills, this teaching, and add it to content that you're making or for audience distribution, whether you're a independent, you're a producer, a content creator, or media owner. The lessons in there perhaps make you think differently about the types of content you want to put out there, so you can play to the need of this generation that wants empowerment. And I think, it's adding repertoire. So adding something into the schedule, adding something into the library that isn't what maybe is predictable, and says to the audience, wow, there's something new here that I might want to try. I'm hearing about this in the schoolyard. I'm hearing about this talked about by friends. I'm seeing this on TikTok. I'm seeing this in places. Great, this platform has it. I'm going to give it a go and see what happens. So I think for me, those are some of the key things that I wanted to sort of take away. I think for me, whether you just acquire, for your schedule, for your platform, for your library, anime, or you use the essence of what anime we can learn from anime in the content creation that we're starting to develop for kids and young adults. I think either way, I think there's a lot that it teaches us. So, as a reminder, and I'll put it up at the end, we do have a full copy of the playbook available on our website. There's be a link in chat, and there's going to be a QR code at the end of this. Some questions that came in. So I'm going to read this, the questions that came in. So, are there any key ages where the relationship or even interest in anime starts, changes? And are there brands that you can speak to that embody this, i.e., certain shows skew younger, serve as an introduction to the genre, and others age up? 6 to 12 is a fascinating group now because of the relationship between TV, gaming, and video. So we'd love to understand the specific pull of anime as kids get into this, the specific pull of anime as kids get into it, and why and what shows they stay with. So here we are. We're looking at the UK because this question came in from someone in the UK, and you can see top 3 anime brands across our data. So looking at that same period, Q3 of this year. I think what you can see is Pokemon number 1, hardly surprisingly. Kodomo is, the audience sits in, that Pokemon sits perfectly in that space. It's designed for kids, it's kid friendly, and it's deliberately made for an under 12 audience. You've got Sonic, which I know originated from game, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Z, however you want to pronounce it. It really dominates that preschool, middle grades, and preteen space. But then as we move older, we start to see shonen animation come in and take over with Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia. And so, the sense is if you're looking for, something to fill that 6 to 9 age group, remember, you've got to be careful. They've got 1 foot in preschool, 1 foot in adolescence. So you might want a little bit of a mix of shonen and Kodomo. But, that's kind of the space, and probably, thinking about shoujo or shaojo, to appeal to definitely pull in the girl audience. So you've got the little kids being targeted there, but also you want to cater for those kids as they start to look up towards being preteens and then moving towards older school. The next question was any information on LATAM or Mexico would be appreciated. Apologies for this, but on the right-hand side, for some reason, we only pick up two anime brands in Argentina. But on the right-hand side, you can see the top three anime for 10 to 15s in the three countries in Latin America that we survey, Argentina, Brazil, and Mexico. And looking at the general pattern, so across LATAM, across those three countries, you can see that 10 to 12 is the peak audience for anime amongst that in that area. By when we break it down by country, focusing on those 10 to 15s, which you can see from the chart on the left, is kind of slightly higher than say the 6 to 12s. So the 10 to 15s, Brazil, it's scoring around 55%, north of 50 in Mexico, and just around 40% in Argentina. And the top genre, and remember, Naruto, One Piece, and Demon Slayer were all originally manga comics that have evolved into anime. Next question that came in was, which source do you use to consider which anime fits in each demographic? So shounen, seinen, kodomomuke. Do you consider what's age appropriate for kids in Japan may not be appropriate in other regions? Now, what we've done here and the team that work with us at Research Solutions and brilliant here is they've looked at the same show, which is Naruto, and how it's portrayed. So in the top two right-hand side of your screen, the top two pictures, you can kind of see on the left tile there, a bit of blood, and then on the right-hand side, blood on the face. And then in the US, on the Cartoon Network version, the blood has been edited out. And then on the right-hand side in Italy, the blood has been darkened to just like a shadow. So, you have to, I don't need to tell you this, when you're buying shows from other countries, we know there's a lot of things that you have to take into account, local editorial guidelines, local cultural, social, even religious differences. So, of course, you need to take account of more things than just age and gender. Certainly, anything designed and made for kids, or certainly under 12-year-old kids, is probably going to fit onto a kids channel much easier than something with edge in it. But I'm sure everything goes through an editorial clearance before it makes the air. And when localizing it, it's not just about dubbing it, it's also about thinking about all those sensitivities that need to be considered. A question came in, do you see, this is a bit broader, see parents shop more in Asian shops like Miniso, which, wow, 3,000 shops in China and expanding rapidly outside. We've also got online platforms like Temu and Shein. Well, we don't track Miniso at the moment, but I think it will be coming into our data in time. We don't even track Temu and Shein in the kids survey, but within kids, this is what we do track, and both you wouldn't be surprised that shopping is more popular with teen girls than it is with teen boys, and this gives you a sense of how big these platforms are. But again, Amazon is still often the go-to place. It's seen as the kind of default when looking at something to buy online. Often parents are influencers here by allowing their kids to use their accounts or insisting that it goes through their accounts as well. We've got some other questions. I'm going to take them offline because they're quite specific. Really appreciate your time and thank you for attending our webinar today. We appreciate you sparing the time to join us for this. I do encourage you to download the anime playbook. You can just scan the QR code on screen, free to download. Just enter the details and away you go. And I hope you find it useful. We are here as always. Please reach out to us if you'd like to ask any questions, any other questions, or anything more you'd like to know about not just anime, but anything in the kids teen, parents, young adult space. It's what we do. Our survey is unique in the world that we are surveying constantly, even on through holidays, public holidays, festivities, festivals. We are surveying audiences in 22 countries around the world. We don't stop. That data gets put on our platform, in a very quick turnaround once we've checked the data and proofed it. So we are constantly watching the trends and tracking the trends and seeing what's emerging so we can keep you ahead of the curve. Appreciate your time. Encourage you to download. Thank you. My name's Adam Woodgate. I head up Research Solutions here at the Insight family. And may I wish you all the best for this time of year. And again, thank you for your time.